So Dan, how are you getting on this morning? How's
Very
everything
well.
going?
Yeah, very well. Bit of a misty morning, but I think it should clear up later. Yeah,
It's
could
not
do with
raining.
things drying out, to be honest.
Hopefully,
Yeah,
with any luck.
indeed.
Yeah, there's a bit of a frost on the ground here, but
Had it worse than us.
yeah, absolutely.
Just for all those who are coming into the webinar, we're just waiting for a few more people to join in before we start and just having a bit of chit chatter between Dan, Ashley and I. So please feel free just to carry on. We'll just wait a couple of minutes. But well, hopefully the sun comes out. It looks like it's trying to peek through the clouds here where I am at the moment. So
We desperately need it at home. We had a bit of a torrid time yesterday. Spud harvesting.
Really?
Yeah. Yes. Things got stuck properly.
Oh dear.
Properly stuck. Not clever, but hey, how it goes.
All
Like
resolved?
that. Yes, with a winch. Yeah. But it could very much do with a dry spell. I think most people have had plenty.
Yeah, you're not alone. I think it's pretty wet out there, isn't it? And I've heard of people getting stuck. So,
well, I luckily get the benefit of, or luckily depends on the weather, I suppose, of being indoors most of the time. It's my brother that has to manage all of that. So
fair enough. Right, I think we've more or less got everyone ready now and logged in. So shall we make a start? So good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. It's run jointly between MHA Larking Gowen and YAGRO. The running order today is I'm going to give a brief introduction. My name is Ashley Smith. I'm one of the partners in Larking Gowen's Farms and Landed Estates team. Dan Jolly is from YAGRO, and he's going to deliver the main presentation today. And then we're going to follow up with a brief question and answer session at the end, led by Laurie Hill, who is one of my colleagues at MHA Larking Gowen. All going well, we will aim to finish by 9 AM today. The format of the webinar today, microphones will be on mute for the duration. So we will be talking at you, I'm afraid, sorry about that. But we would like to interact, so please do put some questions in the question box. You should have a little red arrow on the side of your screen, which if you press that, it should open up a question box to enable you to enter a question, and we will try and get through as many of those at the end as we can. And recordings will be available on our website at the end. So please feel free to pass this on to anyone else you think might be interested, or if you want to listen again, if it was that good.
Crikey, no pressure.
The reason we're running the webinar today is we're in slightly uncertain times in agriculture. We have clearly got Brexit around the corner. I heard yesterday we've got 50 days to go until the transitional period ends, following which we might leave with a deal, we might leave without a deal. We don't know yet, and it's a little bit uncertain what impact that may have on UK agriculture and supply chains, etc. And coupled with that, we've got the phasing out of the basic payment scheme, which we know we've got one more year, and then we will start to see that being phased out with a new environmental land management scheme coming in. Unfortunately, we have very few details about what that new ELM scheme will look like. The one things we do know is that we are going to have to work harder for our money. We are not going to simply just be able to get paid for an area basis. We are going to have to do some kind of work to get that money. And we can also be pretty certain that the bigger farmers are going to take the biggest hit initially with the phasing out of the BPS. So I hope we will get some more details at the beginning of next year, but all of this leads to a bit of uncertainty around what the future of farming might be. And YAGRO is one business that is looking at data specifically to enable farmers to make better business decisions, to enable them to become smarter farmers, I guess, to reduce that reliance on the basic payment. And we thought at this point it might be quite useful to run a brief poll to see what people's thoughts were about how they might replace their basic payment. So we've got a few options here, and I'm afraid we've been a little bit unfair because we're only going to allow you to choose one option. So I guess you have to pick the one that applies the most. So we've got no plan, or you haven't considered how you might replace the basic payment yet. You might look to diversify, you might look to increase yields, reduce your costs, or lastly to rely on a new ELM scheme or increase your environmental stewardship and get some grants another way. So I'll just give you a minute to respond to that. It is at MHA Larking Gowen, we see numerous sets of farming accounts. We deal with 800 plus farmers across the region, and it's interesting to see the variety of opinions with this about what people might look to do. So
Quite harsh, only giving one option as well.
yeah. So that's interesting. So we have now got the results in, and they show that the majority are looking to diversify in some form. And the next leader is rely on ELMs or increase your grants in another way. Diversification is a very interesting one, and there's no doubt in these uncertain times that actually having some income away from farming is a good business decision. Where I think we need some care is to not have another business prop up our farming activities if that is unnecessarily profitable. Okay. I think that is a useful point to hand over to you, Dan, if that's okay. I will be appearing again, I'm sorry to say, for the question and answer session, but for now, Dan, it's in your hands.
Thank you very much. Quite an interesting poll there. I need to just there we go. Hopefully, you all can see this slide here. Well, firstly, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak this morning. Appreciate that it's relatively early in some people's terms for a webinar this morning, but we'll try and keep it upbeat and interesting. But yes, thank you to Ashley, Laurie, and the team for the opportunity to speak. We're going to be talking about some of the work we've been doing recently at YAGRO. And a tool that we have called Analytics that goes some way to help in the replacement of BPS. Just a little bit about me to kick things off. This is where I originate from, Rowden Farm in South Norfolk. We're on the sandy lands there, the Brecklands there, where those that are from the county would have driven through the farm if you drive between Thetford and Norwich, because it gets split by the A11. And you might well have seen some buggies going up and down because one of the crops that we do is asparagus. The business is run by my brother Will here on the right, and having taken over from Father Tim, but who's still very much involved on all things irrigation, actually, amongst other things. And then myself, I actually don't work on the farm at home. I went to Durham and then did the MDS graduate scheme, which put me around a couple of different fascinating companies, one of which was G's, where I actually ended up working and worked there for 6 years. They're a large salad and veg producer and seller of goods to the retailers, and was fortunate to work right across their business, not only in terms of sector but also country as well, over in Spain and Senegal, which was a fascinating learning experience. But I left about 5 or so years ago to set up YAGRO with my business partner Gareth. And YAGRO, we have a guiding question, which I appreciate is perhaps a little heavy for this morning, in terms of how can I make sure my next decision yields best returns for my farm business. Bit of a mouthful, so to maybe more simply, more informed decisions. But then everybody's talking about making more informed decisions, and hang on a second, I'm doing as best as I can here as a farm. I'm making as informed decisions as possible. So perhaps we'll just tune it a little bit, and almost, is there anywhere I can improve, even just a little bit? And is there the need to improve? Well, Ashley's already alluded to things from the BPS perspective. We don't know what's happening. I've drawn a little graph here, obviously not even to scale or indeed perhaps overly that accurate. But this is roughly what's going to be happening over the next 7 years, which is a little bit challenging, but hopefully Elms comes in to save the day in that respect. But I think there's challenge because maybe actually this happens. Maybe BPS comes a little bit off a little quicker. Maybe Elms quite isn't the pot that we hope it to be. So we're all left then with the challenge as farms of trying to replace that 220, 230 pound a hectare of BPS. And in percentage terms, that's roughly 20% of a arable, so mainly combinable inputs. So it's a case of perhaps how do we tackle this? I was intrigued by the poll and the diversification being the top one. The way I guess we look at things is the diversifications, if we can do them, we should do them anyway. And is what can be done within the business and the specific farming side of things to drive performance and drive productivity, I guess, help us all get more from less. And that's what we try and tackle here at YAGRO. Very much focusing on the farming side of things, very much focusing on the controllable aspects, the uncontrollables. Yes, we need to learn as much about them as we possibly can, but very few of us have any influence over what's going to happen with Brexit, perhaps, it seems. So it's a case of trying to stay on top of and trying to stay in control of those the controllable factors to ultimately drive performance and take things forward, and replace that BPS. We do believe it is possible. It's not going to be easy, and we have to do it relatively rapidly on farm, given ourselves basically a 5-year period to do it, which is not easy. So then that's where we believe that data and technology comes into play, because data and technology is there to help us, and is really opening up a new area and a new, I guess, source of value for us on the farm, and how we as farmers can take things to a whole nother level. We're guided by a steering group of farms. We've got 15 farms that have been helping us for the best part of 18 months, 2 years now on this specific project. And when we started, we asked them all questions of basically what do they want, what do they need, what's the sort of pains they have within the industry, and they all said the same thing. Loads of data out there we don't use. and ultimately we need to make better use of it to help drive professionalism and better performing businesses. But they also all said, and this was loud and clear, that they were absolutely done with entering any more data manually, didn't want any more maps, just actually wanted something that was going to help. So we've got a few of the farms, perhaps local to those that are dialing in today, that have been helping us on this, and there's more in there. A real mix, and fascinating to learn from them all. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank those and all of our farms actually that have been helping us do what we do over the last few years. What do we do is probably the obvious question, obvious next question. It's about doing something with chaos, and the data and information that's out there on farm at the moment is chaotic. And I mean that in multiple senses of the word, I guess. It's chaotic in terms of the flow of information, the style of information, the language of the information. So that results in a sort of chaotic and time-consuming situation for us as farms. And then with my YAGRO hat on, it's chaotic in another sense of the word, in that the languages of all the data is all different, and it's very difficult to do something when data in that sense is chaotic. So, but what we need to do is take that chaos and get order out of it, and that allows us to take data and drive insight out of it. And that's then ultimately what we do, is ingesting information from farms and turning back insight that they can action immediately and deliver value onto farm. But a lot of talk here. We're going to get to a demo in a second. I just wanted to show you how we do this and how we answer the question of not entering a farm, not entering anything manually into a system, into our system, and that's because we built a data ingestion engine, as it's called, which, funnily enough, does exactly what it says on the tin. We control this currently for data verification purposes, but effectively what a farm can do here is run a report from their farm management software or their invoices, yields, Excel spreadsheet, etc., and we drag and drop that into the into our data ingestion engine, hit process, and the very clever tech that we built in the background does all the rest. So in terms of timelines, it's about 10 minutes work for a farm. It takes us a solid week to develop, build the platform, and process, analyze, and verify all of the information. But that's not a bad sort of turnaround for 5 years worth of data, which for a normal farm would be tens of thousands of lines of data, certainly not the amount that you want to be entering manually. So that's sort of a bit of the background. It's now actually time to have a little look at it to see what gets back, and if I'm lucky here, you can now hopefully see this is our demo platform, and you'll need to follow my mouse, so hopefully you can see that moving around a little bit. And we're on here as the mythical home farm up here in the top left, as you can see it. So this information is real information, but it's been manipulated from a few farms to create an interesting picture. And what we're actually looking at here is the cost of production per ton. So this number here, which is rather obviously the spend per hectare divided by the yield. And we're looking at this on a crop by crop basis for this particular farm for this particular year. But you've got multiple years, you can obviously just pick and choose the one you want to look at. We've gone back and looked at 5 years worth of data here. And it's a case of understanding one's cost of production per tonne, which in this case here for winter wheat being 53.45, and understanding how that performs on a market range of other farms that where the information is all completely validated and it's an apples versus apples because it's all gone through the same data ingestion engine as we saw earlier. So with a farm can then with confidence understand their performance. And the reason it's called Explorer here is because initially on farm it's a case of exploring where one perhaps can focus. It's the whole point with all of this is twofold. It's to bring confidence to the decisions already being made. For example, perhaps winter barley. Focus might not be drawn here, or it's perhaps to bring confidence to do something different. And we fundamentally on farm have to do something different if we're going to replace BPS. It's just not possible to keep doing what we currently do and expect a £230 a hectare difference to just happen. So it's a case of being bold. It's a case of deciding with confidence on what to do where, and we'll get stuck in here. So we'll focus in on winter wheat here. And what we're able to see here as I've navigated down the pyramid, as I call it here, we can still see this 53.45 cost production per tonne. We've now got it though spread on these on the graph here on the top right. This is then the 5-year position for this farm. We've ingested 5 years worth of information with the yellow market average line overlaid over the top, so one can see one's performance in relation to the average. I would stress this is not the industry average here. This is the market average. This is the average of farms that we've got doing analytics, and there's some 80-odd thousand hectares worth of farming in here, which is not a bad start, considering we started in September of this year. But the point with this here is to help a farm understand where they perhaps want to focus. Here, for example, they could, if they wanted to, focus on 2016 and 2018 because cost of production there was significantly improved on previous years. Now, was that simply a yield thing or was that a cost thing? Well, it's just a case then of flicking between the years to understand and drive value. We're going to stay with 2020 just for simplicity for this discussion today. So the 53.45 is then broken down into the cost of production per tonne of the seed, fert and sprays. And again, that's set then against the market range so that a farm can understand where to focus. They might want to focus on the £14 per tonne's worth of opportunity that exists from their £28 per tonne down to the £14 per tonne minimum here. Another way though of analysing one's cost of production is at the varietal level. So here in this table here and the performance by table, all of this information is purely internal information. This is what we call internal analytics because there's no other farm information within here. This farm has grown 3 different varieties on these hectareages, and the cost of production per tonne has ranged from £48 to £56 per tonne. Now, part of the way of this is being used is on confidence in varietal choice. It might well be the case that this farm is getting an £8 premium on their KWS Bassett versus this variety here, but perhaps they're not. But obviously the mix and the area basis of these varieties at these cost of productions fundamentally results in the overall cost of production of 53.45. So it's a case of perhaps one can look at one's varietal mix to drive performance. What we're actually going to do is just dig into the detail of a particular variety. So we're going to have a look at illicit. Now, in the background now, everything narrows. So there's a reduced history, if you can see up here at the top. There's a reduced history here because the farm's only been growing illicit for a couple of years. So too, though, has the market range narrowed. So in stepping down the pyramid into another layer of detail with illicit, the data set in the background has also narrowed. So we can see the performance of illicit versus illicit in the year of 2020, for example. We can also then see the performance in seed ferts and sprays again. And of course, at any stage, should you wish to, you can blow out the details of chemistry and see where exactly one might need to focus on any element, on sub-element within chemistry. Another way, though, of understanding one's spend and one's performance at the varietal level is, of course, at the field level. So these are all different fields here of the same variety grown on the same farm in the same year. Now, the farm is the expert of their land, of course, and they'll know that there's the difference, and we all have differences in the fields that we grow. But what's often fascinating to see for a farm is this position here, when you're looking at the cost of production per tonne and how that ranges. And this is then listed, and these bars here refer to the cost of production per tonne. So anything green is positively contributing to the farm average. Anything that is orange is negatively contributing to the farm average. But a cost of production tonne that ranges from just under £40 per tonne through to £64 per tonne is a fair spread. And so then it's a case of understanding why and how to dig into the detail thereof that. What we often remember on farm is this number here. It's the 10 tonnes per hectare that Sladefield produced. And the butts, interestingly, also produce 10 tonnes per hectare. So we might anecdotally remember them as similarly performing fields. But interestingly, the cost of production to get there, the cost per hectare, sorry, to get there, is markedly different between the two. So in the same farm with the same variety in the same year, we've got some fields that are negatively contributing by £24 per tonne versus other fields. Some farms are using this table here specifically to understand which fields they might want to look to put into an environmental scheme or might want to change. Probably don't want to put the whole of the butts in. It's quite a large field at 28.4 hectares, but perhaps part of it. And the whole reason we do what we do here, as one of our steering group farms said, is they want to be able to manage their farm not only at a crop level or a variety level, but actually where each field is an individual profit center. So how do you drive the performance of each individual field? Because if you can drive the performance of each field, you've by default driven the performance of each variety of each crop. And if you're doing that every year, then the business can only be improving. We're going to jump into bricktop as getting into another layer of detail. So we've navigated down the pyramid even further, right down towards to the bottom now. Now, what we're seeing here, there's obviously only one history here, but we can see the specific parts and the specific makeup of bricktop and perhaps the areas that we want to focus in order to drive performance. Now, I fully understand that this is retrospective. You have to have a yield in here to understand the performance of the field. But a significant part of what we do on farm is dictated by our experience of the past. Here is the past, and it's a case of how do we understand the past better? Because the more we can understand it, the more we can improve the future. This farm might want to focus on some of the bigger ticket items. They might want to be looking at their trace element spend here. It's towards the top end. Okay, it's only worth £5 per tonne, but we'd all take £5 per tonne on top of our selling price. Your eye might be drawn to a fungicide spend, relatively punchy at 209, pretty punchy in fact. But what we know as farms is that actually there's multiple things that are making up that number. And yes, it might well have an impact on the yield that's produced on this field, but the makeup of this 209 here is dictated by three things. It's dictated by the products that we buy, the rate at which we apply them, and the price at which we pay for them. And you can see here with YAGRO Analytics, we're very much focusing initially on the variable spend. It's perhaps the less sexy area to focus on, and one might be drawn to labor and machinery more quickly. That's an area we're coming to. But with variable spend, we can actually change this on a year-by-year basis. It's quite difficult to do that with the labor and machinery. So it's a case of trying to understand which levers you can pull and push to drive performance. So is it product, is it rate, is it price of any of these factors across seed, ferts, and sprays? But that's quite complicated mathematically, because if you've got three factors in there that are determining one number, you've got to break those factors down to understand, is it the product you need to focus on, the rate you need to focus on, or the price? And we've done that. What we're going to do now is I'm going to simply click on this button here that says View Program at the top. We're actually going to relatively quickly change pyramids, as I call it. So we are now still within Bricktop, we're still within illicit, we're still within winter wheat, and we're still within this farm, but we're specifically looking at the program side of things. And interestingly, there's a £9,000 opportunity on this particular field. We've got all the background information that sits within this field on this side over here, which is absolutely fine. But what I mean by the program analysis here is understanding across one's seeds, ferts, and sprays where the lowest hanging fruit is, and that's what we mean by target opportunity. The cost per hectare here is then broken down and into different individual opportunities. So we can look, for example, at seed, and we can look at the rate of the active ingredient. The active ingredient, and obviously in a seed's case, is the seed itself. And we're looking at here a rate of 200 kilos per hectare versus a market median, critically not a market minimum, but a market median of 161 for illicit. Everybody's been given the same reference cost. And by that we mean everybody's illicit for this purpose in this particular bit of the platform has been priced at 46 pence per kilo. And what that means is that mathematically we can look at the difference between 200 kilos a hectare and 161, giving a target opportunity of just shy of £18 a hectare. Now, it might well be the case that this illicit went on in challenging conditions, and that's why the seed rate was turned up. So fine, might not be able to do anything off the back of that, but it's at least interesting to understand the cost that that's brought to the business. We wanted, though, to focus on the chemistry side of things. Now, chemistry blows things out into quite a different level of detail, because here what we're looking at is the rate of active ingredient and split by subcategory. So we're looking at there's fungicides here, there's trace elements underneath, etc. But we wanted to focus on fungicides. Having navigated through Explorer and finding that the fungicide spend within this field was worth exploring, let's look at that now then. And again, we're looking at the rates of active ingredients. In this case, this true active ingredient, not the brand. So it cuts through the product down to the brand level, for it is actually the active ingredient that we are applying, obviously on farms, as opposed to a brand itself. And again, here you've got the rate of azoxystrobin, for example, on this field, on this farm, sorry, against the market median, again, with the reference cost giving an opportunity of just over £8 a hectare. Now, I hasten to add, it's not telling you to stop doing this and start doing this. It's saying the difference between what's happening on this field and what the market median is, critically the median, not the minimum, is bringing about a number of £8.33. Now, if we on farm can justify this number here, then fine, we can crack on. It's giving us confidence in the decisions that we're making. If we can't justify it, or we want to just explore it further, that's exactly the point of this. So here one's eye might be drawn, for example, to a £50 per hectare just shy of prothioconazole. Now, I as a farm and as a human have a relatively short memory and can't remember what prothioconazole is, perhaps, or even when I applied it. Not a problem. Just have a little click on it and it'll tell you. Because we've ingested nitty-gritty levels of detail from a farm management software, we can represent that back to the farm in a way that is easy to view and easy to remember. Oh yeah, it was Adelatus here on the 23rd of the 5th. So we're trying to find here the levers that we can pull and push that are going to drive performance of the business. This is the rates lever, and this is the rates lever on chemistry, on fertilizer, and on seed for this particular field, which was giving a £9,000 opportunity, might well be worth exploring. Jumping that up a level now, we're going to navigate back up to the top of the pyramid. The opportunity on illicit is split across these fields and totals £20,000. The opportunity on winter wheat is £31,000. Now we've got a just checking sign in here because we go through a data verification step, and where there's something that we're not sure of, it's not counted until it's fully verified. So a £31,000 opportunity on winter wheat, dialing up to a £61,000 opportunity for the business overall. This is purely looking at rate. So the other lever then that we want to be able to understand as farm businesses is price. It was product, rate, and price, and we've looked at product here and rates. The other way then of looking at things is on product and price. Now we're going to jump into the pricing side of things here, and just while this loads, what we're looking at here is an understanding at a product by product basis what the farm has purchased, the overspend, so this is the spend above the market price that the farm has paid. So in this case here, they've paid 27.9% more for their 3-seed chlormelquat than they needed to have done. The opportunity that then brings about, and if there is an alternative brand with the same active ingredients at the same concentrations, then that brings about opportunities on this right-hand side over here. Now, from the work we were doing on the other in Explorer and Program Check, it was prothioconazole specifically that we wanted to look at. So this farmer can search by the active ingredients within that were used on this farm for prothioconazole, and here they come through. Now you've obviously got multi-brand or multi-active ingredient products here, but it's a case of understanding the spend and the saving and the overspend and the saving opportunity on a product by product basis. Some there'll be areas where it's going well, some there'll be areas where there's a little bit of improvement, and some there'll be areas where there's more. But the important thing with all of this is to find out where and why and how, more importantly, how do we do something about it? Now, with Ag Chem, you can wrap it up to a total overview level, and what we're looking at here is all of the products that have been bought on this particular farm in the season of spring 2019, where they've been buying some products well, for sure, but there's other areas with other products where there's room for opportunity or room for saving. So there's 13 products where there's up to 5% saving, another 13 coincidentally where there's 5 to 10% saving, 10 to 15% saving, and the one you don't want any number in at all, but there is quite a lot of 15% plus. Now, if you wrap up all of this, the non-green bars here, if you wrap up all of these and effectively put them into the green bar box, that for this farm, for this season, for the spring of 2019 was £16,000, or that's their rebate on an apples versus apples basis. So what we're trying to do here is trying to find the levers that we can pull and push that ultimately drive the performance at a field level, at a variety level, and at a crop level, and ultimately then obviously at a farm level. We're trying to get this 53-45, trying to get this position here lower, because if we can produce crops for lower, then the margins obviously go up. This is critically one's variable cost of production per ton, rather obviously here. We are moving to taking things onto a gross level and then a net level with labour and machinery as well. But I appreciate with all of this that it's just data. It's just data. We on farm, we've got to do something with that data. You can't do analytics. You can't do YAGRO Analytics and then just expect this number to have improved the following year. We have to do something different, and we want this tool to be used to bring confidence in those decisions. But we also appreciate that there's actually different ways of looking at things, and context is quite helpful. So I'm just going to switch now to a concept that we call virtual groups, which is over here in the menu panel, if you can see my mouse. Over here, I'm actually going to load it up on here because it's just going to be a little bit quicker. The concept of a virtual group is where home farm have created a private local, in this case, a local farming network, and they've got total choice and control. They've created a private network, really, with farms that they know and trust. So here is home farm, and they know and trust A and B farming, FG estates, and CDE farm partnership. It's done on an invite and accept basis. And so home farmers invited A and B farming to join, and A and B farming have gone, yes, great, I'd love to share learning with you. Group created, and the 4 farms have done that, and they can look across multiple years of their history. And it's a case of sharing knowledge and sharing learning here, because we were looking at home farms 53-45 on cost of production on their winter wheat and analysing that purely from a data perspective, which is helpful. But they could also just pick up the phone to CDE Farm Partnership, and understanding one's position against one's trusted peers is an incredibly powerful way of driving performance. What I've done here is just blown out the details of winter wheat, because it might well be that initially we go, it's just a yield thing. Now the yield, yes, is a little bit different, but it's not that different. 10.89 to 11.27. There is more difference in there. So 582 versus 444. We wanted to look at fungicides specifically at 128. And yes, the conversation with this farm would absolutely be worth it. A conversation with this farm here with A and B farming would also be worth it. And I've been fortunate to sit in on some virtual meetings, and it has been fascinating, the discussions and the learnings that have been taken by farms, because when you put the expert of one farm in the room with an expert of another farm and the expert of another and another, and you put good farms together, you get even better farms out the back of it. And the whole point with the virtual group concept here is shared learning and driving opportunities on farm. Just going to switch now back to 2 things, because that concludes the demo. We've obviously just scratched the surface of it. And the questions that we were trying to answer was, is there anywhere I can improve my business even just a little bit? Well, yes, hopefully. And it's just a case of understanding where. I put in here some examples of where farms have made some saving opportunities from, and just listed them out. So we've seen some farms with making varietal decisions and field choices, now a big range in terms of the difference that's made on farm. Agronomic program changes, input price improvements, agronomic ways of working, up to 30%, 32% improvement there. Fertilizer regimes, drilling rates and dates, there's a whole host of areas where a farm can drive improvements on their farm. It's a case of needing to get into the nitty-gritty, but the whole point with what we built here is a farm shouldn't spend time getting into the nitty-gritty. That's what technology is for. And the ingestion, the automatic ingestion of streams and streams of data where a farmer can get results out of immediately is exactly what we're all about. Trying to then bring the benefits of that affordable analytics to all parties. But what do I mean by all parties? There's farms out there that want to do this by themselves, for sure, and farms can drive value out of it, absolutely. But there's also a role to be played by an advisor, and advisors have the benefit of looking over multiple farms, and so the shared practice that can be driven there is phenomenal. And then the third area then is trusted peers, because we have to work together if we want to navigate the next 5 to 10 years in agriculture. The sweet spot obviously being right there in the middle. And it's the working together, it's the collaborating, and what we're seeing is the use of virtual groups and the driving of performance there that is the most obvious and in reality easiest way as well of driving performance and driving improvements on the farm. There's no reason, I believe, there's no reason why two farms should have to go through the same learning hoops. One farm can just help another farm. We're all in this together. We've all got to find £230 a hectare's worth of improvements in 5 years, possibly even less. That's not very easy at 20%, but by working together, it becomes a little easier. Now, I couldn't do this on my own. We have an amazing team here at YAGRO of technology. So we have our in-house tech team, a data team, a customer team, marketing team. It's a phenomenal group of guys and girls that I have the fortune of working with, and I'd like to say thank you to them for all their hard work. The team has tripled over the summer and during lockdowns, which has been a challenge, but we relish challenges. If you want to learn a little bit more, then just jump onto our website and you can request a demo there or find out a bit more. The easiest way of looking at things is by doing a demo, for sure. Or if you want to, then get in touch with Larking Gowen at the end, or there's my contact details there as well. And that's it. Thank you very much. If I stop sharing my screen now.
Thank you, Dan. That was really very interesting. So, Laurie, are you going to take us through a few questions that we've received?
Yes, I will do. Thank you very much, Dan, for that. Very insightful, thought-provoking presentation. Especially, it is good to see what the system can do. And I hope that those of you who are attending have found it useful. A couple of questions have come in throughout the session, and what I think one key point is what type of farms do you see using the analytics software? Is it more the larger farms, or do you get some of the smaller farms coming to you for help as well?
It's a good question. The whole mix, but it appeals to different farms coming from different areas. We all grow acres, and whether you've got 1 acre, 1,000 acres, 10,000 acres, or 100,000 acres, is exactly the same. It's a case of trying to drive the performance on that land base. So yeah, we see a real mix. Smaller family farms all the way through to large multi-site agribusinesses. Yeah, they all struggle with the same challenge, and we have the whole mix of farms on our steering group as well, purposely so that we can learn from farms of different types and sizes and shapes and what they want. So yeah, cereals, veg, yeah, it's anything goes.
No, thank you. I think one sort of key, you could say, elephant in the room is what's the cost. I know from as a farmer myself, as an accountant, that we don't necessarily like to part with our money unless we're getting some value. So how much is it going to cost for farmers?
Yeah, so rather simply, it's a pound per acre per annum. So it's an annual charge on things. Most farms wanting to commit to a multi-year setup, because that's they see this is not a one-off project for them. We ingest 5 years worth of information to get a farm going, but obviously there's 5, 6, 7 years, depending on how one looks at it, of extreme challenge ahead. So yeah, really simply a pound per acre per annum is where we're at. We have a minimum spend in there, so there's a minimum of 1,000, which because it just doesn't stack up otherwise internally for us, and we reinvest any profits into the development then of new technology, of which there's a whole boatload coming. So keep eyes open.
No, thank you. I think that's a good point. I think it's good to know what farmers are working with in terms of what they've got to pay out in order to get the service and try and get the value of their data. So it's
another way of looking at it is on a pound per acre for an arable farm. That'll equate to roughly 0.5% worth of what they put into the field. So if we can't find, if as an industry we can't find half a cent's worth of improvements, then we're all a little bit stuck, because we've got to find 20% worth just to stand still financially with BPS.
Yeah. One question that's come in from is saying, could you just remind us where the market median is and reference costs are derived from, please?
Yep. So the market median is from our data set. So the market, any market information that you saw in the data there, where it's the market average, market median, that's driven from our data set of some 80,000 hectares now and growing. It is critically the median as opposed to the minimum, because some farms, for example, being extreme here, might not put any fertilizer on, so you couldn't compare yourself to a zero value. And then the reference cost as well comes from our data set too.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. You talk about chaotic data and creating sort of a sensible platform to see it all in one go. What support do you provide to farms that are sort of not quite up to speed with their data management, if they don't happen to have all the data that you need to ingest into the system, into the data engine?
It's one of the reasons we started with variable spend is because the information does exist. Now it is the case that some farms don't necessarily have direct access to it, but their agronomist might. But we as farms, we have to record what we're doing on a field by field basis from an agronomic perspective. So you're going to have your products and your rates. You're going to have all of your prices of everything, because you've physically paid for something, therefore it's on an invoice. And you're going to have your yields. Some farms have that at the field by field level, and that is definitely the best level to have it, because that's the level at which you can drive most insight from things. Other farms would only have a sold tonnage, but that is obviously fundamentally one's yield, is because what you've actually sold off the back of it. And we go through verification steps with every farm. It's not combine data, for example, that you see in here. If a farm only has combine information, then we run that alongside their sold tonnage to get an accurate yield out the back of it, rather than a potentially inaccurate combine yield But answering your question slightly differently, we'll work with every farm that wants to do this to get their information from whatever source or format it's in.
I think there's a few more coming through, which is good to see. One point is, can you choose the type or area of farms to be measured against for the median range to compare your costs to? Or
yeah, that's a very interesting question. Yes, in time, the data set in the background has to be massive to enable that you to get an accurate picture there. But that's where we see most farms using, or advisors or whoever's working with the farm, using the virtual groups, because the virtual groups, you can simply invite farms that you want to work with. And it's quite interesting because a lot of the farms, or the vast majority of farms that are on the platform, are incredibly open to collaboration, which is great to see, and quite a step on from where the industry has been in the past. And it's that collaboration that's going to help us get through the next few years. So if you wanted, for example, if my family farm wanted to work with other Breckland soil farms, well, we know most of them, great, just invite them on a virtual group.
how many farms can you have on a virtual group though?
We tend to see most people going up to sort of 5 or 6, that sort of territory, because any more, it's a little busy on the eye, but also there's quite a lot going on. And the important things with the virtual groups are the discussions that are had amongst the farms. And you know, if you had a Zoom call with 20 different people on it, it sometimes is a little bit difficult. So we tend to see 5 to 6 farms being the optimum number that farms are doing at the moment.
That's brilliant. I think that's good. I think limiting it to 6 is probably a good idea in terms of seeing the data and it not being too overwhelming. Because I think if you had too many, it'd be too much to ingest.
I was fortunate to sit on some virtual groups recently and just be a sort of fly on the wall and listen and learn as to what the discussion was and ultimately also what technologies wanted, further technologies wanted.
Yeah.
And I think with one group we spent 1 hour and 45 minutes talking about 2 crops in 1 year. There's huge amounts you can get into, and the learnings that were taken were very different for each farm, but it's a fascinating environment, it really is.
Thank you. I think one last question for you. I think just to say, how is the data sort of secured? Is it all private and held by yourselves?
Yeah, so we have a separate server that all the data then runs on, and we're getting into the real technology terms. Way here, there's front ends and there's back ends of technology, and there's split servers that we run on that. So maintaining integrity of the information and the security of that information. And a farm's information is always theirs. They can do whatever they want with it. We don't sell data. We're here to help farms make more informed decisions by providing farms with insight from information.
Thank you, Dan and Laurie. I'm conscious of time, and I promised we'd wrap up by 9. So thank you, Dan, for your presentation. It's really interesting to see, and I think, you know, there's no doubt that the sharing aspect, the collaboration, is a vital part of moving forward, isn't it? We've all got to be slightly more open with where we are, I think, to make more informed decisions on the farm. So, Dan, you did give your details. If anyone wants to get in touch, please feel free to contact either one of us. And enjoy the rest of your days. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.